Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome once again to the California-Nevada chat. This time it's Friday, October 7. My name is Len Dumas, Executive Director for the Northern California Section PGA, and our thanks to our partners, colleagues, and friends, Tom Addis, Executive Director and CEO of the Southern California PGA, Nikki Gatch, Assistant Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer, and Jeff Johnson, Chief Financial Officer, our on-air team of Steve Monday, Bryce Seaver, and our new addition, Danny Cross in the Southern California PGA office, and of course, Shelby Zell up here in Vacaville. Our guest this morning, we have PGA member John Linder. John, the General Manager and Director of Golf of the Country Club of Lansing, but also our current Vice President on a national basis. And in just about a month, John, just under a month, headed into the President's chair. So thank you for joining us. Azucena Maldonado, founder of the Latina Golfers Association, a member of the Southern California Golf Association Board of Directors, and also currently the Secretary for the California Alliance for Golf. And Craig Kessler, Craig, our Director of Public Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. Northern California PGA President Eric Lippert is not able to join us this morning, but sends his regards and the best for our good session, which I'm sure we will have. So I'd like to turn it over to our dear friend, Tom Addis. Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Len, and good morning, everybody, and good morning, John and AZ and Craig and Danny and Nikki and Steve Monday in the background there. We appreciate everybody being here. And Robin Shelton, the president of the Southern California PGA, sends his regards and for another good session. So we appreciate that. One thing I'd like to mention before we go too much farther, because this month and later in the month, Nikki Gatch will be ending her term as president of the Southern California Golf Association, which I think you all know is quite the important position in the game of golf, the business of golf. And Nikki, congratulations for what you've done and leading the way in these particularly difficult times in the golf industry. And we really appreciate what you've done, as well as handling the myriad of duties here in the Southern California PGA as both assistant director, executive director, COO, as well as probably should say /CEO, because you're doing everything now anyway. So just want to express our appreciation, Nikki, for what you've done, not only this past year as president, but leading up to that, and then what you've done for the section. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the kind words. Thanks, everybody.
Len?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Nikki. And we look forward to just continuing on. So, you know, we've had an exciting time, an exciting past couple of weeks. An amazing finish at the Fortinet here in Silverado a couple of weeks ago, followed by the American victory at the President's Cup. And now we are headed in about another week or so to the Senior PPC in New Mexico, which we will discuss. But let's turn over to Mr. Linder. John, good morning, and thank you for once again being with us.
Thanks, Len. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, a little bit, we'll get to the heavy stuff in a moment, but as Tom mentioned, I believe he just came back from Italy for the year before the Ryder Cup party. So tell us a bit about it. Spirits are high. I'm sure the competitive jabs and digs were there. And were you out at Marco Simone Golf Club?
Yeah, so I'll back up one step even further, just because a member of Southern Cal, Michael Block, was instrumental as part of PGA Cup team win in London. So we were in London 10 days before we were in Rome. So about the 20th of September, we left London, but that was on the heels of a great U.S. victory once again against Team GB&I, which is stacked full of wonderful tour play. And Michael led a charge on Sunday he was, I think, 4 down with 6 to play and ended up winning a point in the individual match, which kind of spurred the rest of the team on. And then obviously he flew to California, and I think he won the section stroke play the next 3 days later. So we were home for about 10 days, flew to Rome, got to meet with Captain Zach Johnson and Captain Luke Donald. And I will tell you this, that I know that Luke wasn't obviously the first choice for Team Europe, but he and Zach Johnson are just going to be tremendous assets to the Ryder Cup. They're going to represent their countries well. They're going to represent the Ryder Cup extremely well. Two extremely wonderful gentlemen that exemplify all there is good about the game of golf. Obviously, Luke went to Northwestern and married a girl from Chicago, and a lot of positives. Italy is extremely excited, and Rome in particular is extremely excited to be the host. I guess I'm not all that familiar with Italy, but people have said that the Italians are a little slow at times to get things done, but it seems like things are on track. Don and Jim and I did have an opportunity to play Marco Simone, and it is a wonderful golf course. It's going to be extremely challenging. And one of the biggest challenges is going to be for the caddies, because it actually is a very, very hilly golf course. Probably hillier, to put it in perspective, hillier than Augusta National. And for those caddies to walk 36 holes is going to be a real test of what their ability is and their endurance. The ceremonies were wonderful. We got to meet some of the dignitaries from Italy. We got to tour part of the city. We got to see the hotels where the team will be staying, where some of the board and past presidents will be staying. Obviously, we got a tour of the site at Marco Simone. 1 year to go. A lot of work yet to be done, but everybody there in Italy is looking forward to it, and hopes are high. The questions in the press conference was a little bit about whether Team Europe would be underdogs. Captain Johnson reminded everybody it's been 30 years since we've won the Ryder Cup overseas, and his goal is to bring the Ryder Cup back home and keep the cup, retain the cup. So a wonderful 4 or 5 days spent in Italy. And now Don and I and Jim will come in later. We're at PGA Junior League Championship.
Right.
Scott.
Right. So John, right, we see you've got your shirt on. So we're back at Greyhawk, right?
Yes.
And the competition is underway, or just about to get underway.
It is underway. Don and I just started the first wave, or the morning wave, or the first day wave today, 7:30 our time, Mountain Time, this morning till 9:30. And they're off and running, and boy, these kids are good. They are really good.
They are really good. Right. They are intimidating, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really intriguing to see how far PGA Junior League has come. I did a TV interview yesterday, and some of the stat information, obviously past PGA Junior League participants, we've got 2 on tour, 1 on Korn Ferry, 1 on the LPGA. We've got 4 or 5 that are playing D1 college golf, a couple of national drive, chip and putt winners. It really is incredible what this has done for the game of golf, and it's diversified the game. The kids are here having a lot of fun. Anna Fang is here, who is 13 years old, and she made it to the match play of the women's amateur this year at Chambers Bay, and she's playing PGA Junior League. And I introduced her on the first tee this morning, and she just flat ripped it. So it is impressive.
It is, which is great, Jones. Absolutely wonderful, because we see it locally as we go through the season, how the families are back involved again, and how this is just becoming player development and a recruiting tool, for the PGA of America as well. Yeah,
and just to kind of put a little validation to it, Tony Finau's here watching his son play. So obviously Tony's supportive. Michelle Wee West was here yesterday, as well as Colt Nost and Rose Zhang were all here speaking to the kids. So it's been a lot of fun the first couple of days, and the competition begins. So some of the fun is going to go away. The kids have a little bit of jitters, and we'll see how the match play ends up.
Well, John, thanks for being there and looking after everyone. And we wish all the teams the best of luck, and we'll find out that sometime Sunday who our national champion is.
Right.
So, John, now to back up a little bit, again, congratulations and thank you, for your service to the association as our incoming president, our 43rd president. But to back up, John, when you became secretary, I think it was your second year, which would be 2020. when the pandemic hit. So as you look at that, John, everything that went through that time, to come together of the associations, to write the Back to Golf guidelines, the boom in the industry now, which continues, and then moving into the vice president's chair, has any in those events, John, the opening of PGA headquarters, the deferred comp, which we'll talk about in a little bit, tremendous changes in the past 3 or 4 years. Would you say that your view is, pre and post, or pre and during going through all that, might have changed some of your thoughts or visions on the future of the PGA?
Len, what's really interesting is I reflect back on my platform that I kind of ran on, and what I highlighted was the number of life members that every one of our sections have as part of our membership scrolls. And if memory serves me correctly, almost every single section life member classification is either number 2 or number 3 of the most number of members in the section, which signals that the retirement is looming of a lot of PGA members. Majority of our PGA members currently have been in the business for over 25 years. And so part of my platform was we need to recruit the next generation of PGA members. That hasn't changed. I think we still need to work really hard on recruiting the next generation of PGA members, and not only recruiting, but more importantly, retaining. And we can recruit all we want, but if we can't keep them in the business, we're not. So I think while the pandemic has changed the outlook of the game and has changed the vibrance of people are playing the game and how many people are coming into the game, still forced with looking at how many people are coming in to work in the industry and how to recruit the next generation of PGA golf professionals. And I still believe that today. We're making some strides in that direction. And I think in my 2 years, that's still going to remain a priority, is how are we going to recruit, but then how are we going to retain? And retention, I think, is going to go through a little bit of education of our current PGA member. I came through the ranks in the open to close era. And the reality is, if we recruit people into the business and we have the mentality that we're going to work them open to close and pay them as little as we possibly can, the retention aspect is not going to be there, which is critically important.
Right. And that's changing, John. I think for sure, as you know, our career consultants and the teams have been talking about so much work-life balance is almost at every meeting that we have these days. So that change is underway. And John, talk about the effect of the new headquarters, which is just amazing. And I feel a source of tremendous pride for all of us, members and associates, and certainly worth coming out for a visit. The new headquarters, the deferred compensation plan, and even the regional model, and how that is affecting our relationships and bringing us closer together.
Well, I think, Len, the board and the officers together have taken a good hard look at things, and obviously the members important and extremely important, and part of that recruitment aspect is how do you build a better package for PGA golf professionals, thus the deferred compensation. And I don't know, you and I have been around almost as long as Mr. Addis has, and we can talk about the fact of how many times we've been told no by the IRS that we wouldn't be able to provide some type of an annuity program for our members. And get this across the finish line is huge. It will be impactful. It doesn't sound like a lot, but boy, when you start putting away $1,500 a year for doing things that you already do for a lot of individuals, running PGA junior leagues and coaching and doing some of those things, it's going to compound over the 25-year lifespan of a young PGA golf professional. Yeah. So I think that's been absolutely fantastic. I hope that it will help us recruit, as I said, young people into the industry. So this is something that we're still working out the fine details on it. It will roll out April 1 of 2023. The Impact of Pga HQ, I've had the opportunity of being there about 4 or 5 times. The golf courses are up in condition to be played. We haven't opened them yet for general play, just because of the construction of the clubhouse and the construction of the hotel isn't complete. So it's still a little bit of a mess around the golf courses, but as far as the grass conditions of the courses, they're extremely playable. Headquarters itself is it's better than the dream. The first floor is all educational, 7 indoor bays with about golf simulators, 4 indoor-outdoor bays. The instructional opportunity, the learning opportunity to have young associates go to PGA Frisco and be educated and trained and mentored, if you will, on the business of golf is going to be fantastic. And it's going to be a place that's, as we've said, it's the home of the PGA of America. It's going to be a place that you're going to be able to take your members and your guests to show you the difference between a PGA Tour player and a PGA of America member. And it's going to tell the story of what we do. It's going to tell the story of our championships. It's going to tell the story of how we're educated, how we're the instructors of the best players in the world, and how we're trained to be the instructors of the best players of the world, and also the best business people within the industry. It's really going to be, and it's easy to get to. So from that standpoint, rave reviews from everybody that have had the opportunity to walk or play the golf courses. Obviously, the first true test will come in May when we have the KitchenAid Senior PGA Championship will be hosted there on the East Course.
Hey, John, I a couple quick questions. I'm sorry, I had to wake up from my midday nap. At my age, you know, it's required about this time, so I can wake up for lunch and have a good lunch and then go back and take another nap. But anyway, when you were in Rome and went to the Vatican, did you have the opportunity to meet the Pope as well?
So I was not included on that list. I was not on that short list. So I actually didn't go to the Vatican. But some did, and the captains got to meet the Pope. And then there was another group of individuals, about 150, I think, or 100-ish, that got a close-up view of the Pope, but not a direct meeting. The only ones that had a direct private meeting with the Pope were the captains and dignitaries from Italy and the captain's spouses.
Interesting, though. It was quite the occasion. Great information on Frisco, and as you move towards the end of October and that first week of November when you will be elected president, what's your preparation? I know it's been extremely difficult with the travel, but what do you think about? How do you prepare as you move forward into that week, and then all of a sudden, because that's what you'll feel like, sort of, it's there, and you're in the chair. So a little insight on your preparation and so on.
Yeah, so part of it is met with kind of the advanced communication team on what my idea of communication would be. We've talked at a very high level, and Len, you referred to the regional model. One of the things that I've talked to the communication team about is, for me and a district director, to send out a communication that's specific to a district, and maybe for Seth and a regional team member to send out a communication to a regional, to the regional teams or to the sections within a region, because it's basically a team member base with Seth and it's a PGA member base with me. Communication is extremely important. So we're kind of starting that process initially, obviously working on developing the committee structure. And one of the things that I plan on doing with committees is I'm going to kind of create a overarching committee so that the subcommittees, as I call them, will not be working in silos, but they're working in tandem and in cooperation. So as an example, the big five, as it were, that always met together with education, employment, you had membership and governance would meet with the executive director committee. I'm going to have a member engagement committee. It's going to consist of those 2 or 3 people from membership, education, employment, governance, and universities, along with an executive director. That would be the overarching committee to the subcommittees of what I just listed. The overarching committee will discuss a unified approach so that we're all marching or rowing in the same direction. And then the subcommittees will then be the worker bees, if you will. They'll actually go to work on the direction set forth by the the member engagement committee. I will do the same thing with player development, which will have player development, junior player development. It will have teaching and coaching summit and teaching and coaching. And we'll have individuals from each one of those subcommittees represented, along with somebody from the executive director committee. So I plan on trying to put somebody from the executive director committee on each one of the overarching committees, so that the executive directors are also brought into the fold and brought into the conversation. So we are all singing from the same playbook, if you will, or songbook.
Yeah, the committee structure over the past few years has been working and working well. And thanks for your participation there. And happy to see that it's going to move forward and continue with a few alterations that will make it better, make the structure and decision-making and engagement better. So congratulations on that. So John, thanks, and look forward to seeing you in Phoenix. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. And I'll just say that just as a point of information, this overarching committee and subcommittee structure is something that Don Ray and I have talked about, and we've kind of bought into it. We just think that changing committees every 2 years and changing the structure of it every 2 years doesn't benefit anybody. And we've seen firsthand committees move in one direction and then change, and then 2 years later they move in a different direction. And having this overarching committee will help. I think will provide more continuity, more consistency, and it will let each subcommittee work, as I said, in tandem with the direction that the overarching committee is giving guidance for. So Don's on board with it as well.
Very much so. Excellent continuity. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Hey, John, as we head to the election, we have something not necessarily unique, but it doesn't come up too often. It seems as though we have one candidate for our next secretary. So any expectation on that? We always play the bottom of the ninth. We never know what's going to happen,
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to talk to Tony and to talk to Dan, and for a variety of different reasons, they felt it was in the best interest of themselves and of the association that they pull their name off the list of candidates. I give credit to Nathan. He's run a tremendous campaign. He's still running a tremendous campaign. Nathan and I have talked, and I said, you've got to take it to the finish line as if somebody does come from the floor to run against you. I don't believe that would happen, but Nathan has done a tremendous job in his campaign in preparation. And I feel like, barring anything catastrophic, that he'll be elected the next secretary. Nathan and I worked on the board together, as did Don, so we're familiar with each other. I think it'll be a great group of individuals for an officer corps. And I think Nathan brings a very level-headed, cerebral, analytical approach to the officer corps. Not that Don and I aren't, but he adds to that. And he brings a great financial background, and he brings a little bit different aspect. He's a GM of a independently owned golf course. And I think he'll be a great member of the officer corps. I look forward to working alongside him.
Yeah, John, that's great. And we'll all be there to support, of course, yourself and Nathan as well. And we do have a question did come in, John, and will LIV players who are classified as A3 retain that designation? And will they be considered for PGA national or section awards?
So at this point, I think that there's still some discussion. I know that legal has talked a little bit about it. We've discussed it a little bit as to what their actual status is. And what I mean by that is technically they are still a PGA of America member. We have to kind of figure out what the suspension from the tour means and how to interpret that. And the reason we have to try to figure it out is in the past, when the tour suspended a player, they never really made it known. They didn't broadcast it or advertise it. So if a player was suspended previously, we wouldn't have known about it. It's now become known that certain players are suspended, and we have to figure out really how do we take that suspension in regard to how does it affect their PGA membership. If it was a normal member, what you would say is that a suspension from a place of employment, if you view the tour as a place of employment, doesn't necessarily exclude you or suspend your PGA of America membership. You have to do something different. I think that A3s, obviously, because they qualify just as an A3, that's probably up for interpretation, which, as I said earlier, we've never done before. So it's an unanswered question at this point in time. It's being looked at. It's being discussed as to what we can do, what we can't do, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And it's all on the table. And obviously, there's a lot that's going on between now and when we have our first major championship. There's constant conversation if you pick the iPhone or look online anywhere, you constantly see conversation. And where that will end up in 4 months, I don't think anybody knows. As far as winning awards, I don't know of really, other than the Varden Trophy and the PGA America Player of the Year award, from that aspect, I don't really know of any awards from a section level that A3s have won. I know they haven't won any in Michigan, so I can't really speak to that as to whether or not they'd still be eligible to win a certain award from a section standpoint.
Great. Well, John, thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. We know you want to get back out there and cheer for everybody, which is great. And John, we will, as I mentioned, congratulations and thank you for your service. We'll all be there to welcome you as the 43rd president of the association in just a little bit under a month. And in the meantime, I hope you can stay for the remainder of our session, but of course, understand you might have to go. And thank you, John. Thank you for everything.
I appreciate it. I've got to jump off in about 10 minutes, but I'll certainly hang on for another 10.
Okay. Terrific.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now introduce Azucena Maldonado. Azucena is the founder of the Latina Golfers Association, member of the Southern California's Golf Association Board of Directors, and currently the secretary of the California Alliance for Golf. So, Azucena, first thing, thank you for your time and welcome to the show.
You know what? I am so excited to be here, Lynn and Tom and Nikki. I listen, I watch for years, all throughout the COVID when you were keeping us together. I watched weekly, or because then you went bi-weekly, now monthly. But one thing that you didn't say, and you probably don't even know, Lynn, but I have for over 12 years, maybe 13 years, been a member of the advisory committee of the SCPGA. And I'm going to show you something. This is one of my prized possessions. I have this amazing badge that Tom gave to me and the other members of the advisory committee. I love this thing. I look at it every single day because it sits on my desk. So I'm super proud of my association with the PGA, the SCPGA, and the PGA of America.
Well, you have influenced us, as I was saying, you've made us a better organization. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us about how the Latina Golfers Association came about.
Well, we're going to be 15 years old on March 11th. We started on March 11th, 2008. I do not come from a golf background. I didn't know anything about golf until I moved to California and I started playing recreationally. I knew nothing about the business aspect of golf, the culture of golf. I just knew that I loved it. I fell in love with it the minute someone took me to the golf course. I couldn't play enough. 9 holes, 18 holes were not enough. 36 holes in a day is what I wanted to do back then when I established my handicap. And so, but I like I said, I was just a recreational golfer. I loved to watch the Golf Channel all the time. And it wasn't until a couple of years into my recreational golf play that I was invited to play in a charity golf tournament. And I jumped in, said, okay, I feel confident with my game. I'll do that. And I realized that there were like 100 or more men registered into this wonderful charity golf tournament. and maybe 3 women, maybe 4. And I was like, okay, I didn't think much of it. And then the next one and the next one that I played, I saw the same thing. And I was like, okay, well, where are all the women? I was so naive about golf back then that I didn't even know that women weren't playing golf. I just knew that I was playing golf and that I loved it. And the other thing that I noticed about this experience of playing in these business golf outings was that I started making amazing connections with people. I was relatively new to Los Angeles, and I was meeting executives, CEOs, elected officials, VIPs. And then when I would run into them at luncheons or receptions, they would all know who I was. And they'd say, how's your golf game? Hey, we've got a foursome going on. You want to join us? And I realized very quickly that had I not been playing golf with them at these tournaments, I may not have met them or be on this kind of level with them. I'd have to be a volunteer on a committee for months and months and months, or maybe years before I got to that level of business friendship. And I said, wow, golf is an amazing tool. It's magic. Because once you become a golfer, I love to say this, we have a term in our culture called comadres, which means like we're buddies, we're girlfriends. And when we have a comadre, we're like there for her. And I learned very quickly that golfers are like that. When you become a golfer, you become a part of a golf family that's international, and you can count that a golfer is going to be there for you. So when I realized this, I said, why are women missing out of this amazing sport that is a great networking business tool? Why aren't we at that table on that green? And then that was in 2008. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to do something about it. And I just started sending emails out to my girlfriends, and rented a room at Brookside, a banquet room at the Brookside Golf Course in Pasadena. Got some hors d'oeuvres. And on our very first event, we had 94 women show up. Wow. We didn't even have a clinic or anything. It was just like, let's get together. Let's talk about this. And that was the beginning of Latina Golfers Association, March 11, 2008. And we have grown a lot since then.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with 94 showing up, I was just saying on the first meeting, it almost says people were just waiting for somebody to ask. Right?
That's exactly it. And that's what I love to say. We are just waiting for the invitation.
Yeah.
People are waiting for the invitation to be asked to come into this amazing sport, this amazing game. What happens is that we're intimidated. If you didn't grow up around golf, I did not. I mean, I knew nothing about golf. I knew nobody that played golf really. And so you're a bit intimidated. You don't know what to do. You have no reason to ever show up at a golf course. Why would I ever go to a golf course? But when you receive that invitation, you're excited and anxious to go, and you just want to be welcomed and felt a part of that family. And that's what we do.
Right. When we initially 3-4 years ago, as I was saying, I really got into diversity and inclusion. That was part of the definition, that the diversity was the invitation. Right. And the way it was presented at the time was the diversity is the invitation to the party. The inclusion is being asked to dance.
Exactly. That's Sandy Cross who coined that phrase. I love her. She's a mentor of mine at the PGA of America. But that's exactly it. We invite women. We invite anybody really just to come and join us. And so what we do, Lynn, our approach is that we like to create fun events that happen to be at a golf course. We've been doing this for 15 years where we'll have a fun networking event at a driving range. We'll have music, cocktails, just hit some balls on the range. And now, of course, it's very popular all around the country, but we were doing it 15 years ago and everybody's catching on to us now. But so people would come to a networking event. It just happened to be at the golf course. So once they step foot in the golf course, then they're like, hey, this is not so scary. I can do this. It's fun. And then we'd engage them to come do golf clinics with us, golf lessons, golf outings, everything fun on the golf course.
So as I was saying, in 2008, 94 members. And I know that that has grown multiples. Please tell us where you are now.
Yeah, in LA County, we've got 3,000 members plus. It's
Wow.
growing all the time. I mean, we're doing golf lessons here locally every week. We've got a series of, like 6 weeks or 4-week lessons, and they are full. We're doing 2, 3, 4 lessons in a day, and it's all year long. So they're coming. They want to come. They're anxious to participate, to become members. Our challenge is to find more golf courses to be able to do our programming. Obviously, in the last couple of years, golf is so popular, and there's just not enough space for us now on driving ranges and at golf courses. So that's a bit of a challenge. So all you out there, come on, think about us. We want to be at your golf course. So I mean, it's just been great. It's just been so heartwarming because a week does not go by that I don't get a text or an email from one of our members saying that their life has been transformed through golf. They're now playing business golf. They're playing with their families. They're playing with their kids. They're playing with their spouses and partners, but especially business golf. They tell me all the time, I got to play with my CEO, and they flew me to some fabulous island where they were doing a retreat for the company, so many positive stories. And so I'm passionate about this, Lynn and Tom and Nikki, because I know that golf has the power to transform people's lives, families' lives, kids' lives, adult people's lives. And I see it every day. So that's what keeps me coming back.
I was just saying that's what's been the key to really your success and your existence. And I think from my viewpoint, I think many others, and this is kind of a statement, but I think you can take it as a question, is everyone can join, as you have said. You don't have to play golf to join the LGA. You eventually may play golf, but you don't have to. And the other thing that's really important, and you just mentioned with executives, is the mix of membership that you have in the LGA. You have legislators, you have corporate heads, you have attorney, you have such a great mix, and it's in every person's kind of a thing. And I think that's really important, as you do in today's world. So good.
I'm glad you observed that, Tom. You've been to our events, Nikki. You've been to our events. Len, one day you'll come down to one of our events, because really it is a hodgepodge. People want a welcoming space, and we provide that for them. They really are curious about golf. They want to learn how to play golf. Most of them, they just don't know how to get started. So we provide that welcoming environment, and we don't force them right away. Just come, check us out, because I know one thing, you're going to have fun when you come to one of our events. So no, some of them will just come to enjoy the networking, because as you said, we've got an amazing group of women that are leaders in the Los Angeles and Southern California areas. So, and I love the diversity of our ages. We have young women who are still in college, graduating, just starting their careers, to seasoned, corporates and C-suites. And so age doesn't matter with us. You can be a 20-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 45-year-old, and we're all going to mix together because they're all going to learn from each other. And we have that kind of sisterhood. The golfer family is alive with the Latina Golfers Association. And I want to thank you, Tom and Nikki. I remember, Tom, when I first met you at one of Craig Kessler's events way before he was at CGA, we'll say it. And you met me and you invited me right away to visit you in Beaumont. Those were Beaumont days to meet, you know who? Miss Nikki Gatch. And so that was my introduction to Nikki, and we've just been a close, and you've been supporters of mine throughout all these years. And I'm so grateful because you partner with us on all our programs too.
Well, great. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn? Or Nikki?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. As I was saying, your passion is screaming through these little tiny windows, these thumbnails. Your passion is coming through. Okay, we've got something that we're going to put on the screen now, and you have some explaining to do. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yep. just so everybody knows that very recently, Azucena was the recipient of the Chargers Hispanic Heritage Award. Azucena, congratulations. I mean, it just shows the commitment, right? And that everything you've accomplished, and the amazing part of something like that is it's not what you set out to do, right?
Yeah.
You set out to bring people together, and we're all very biased, that feeling that only in golf can we do some of these things that you do, you know, so incredible.
I
Congratulations.
am honored. That was a fun event. We were honored by the NFL Chargers as their Hispanic Heritage awardees, and they gave us a grant to our foundation and everything. So we were on the 50-yard line. It was pretty amazing to be on the field there on the 50-yard line with the owners getting an award. That was really, really, really cool. So I thank you for mentioning that. And again, I want to thank the PGA of America nationally. They're our sponsor and our partner. And you in Northern California, Lynn, you're always supporting us. Of course, SCPJ, love you, love everything you do. And I'm so proud of all our PGA members. I see what you do. I see what you're about. I see where your heart is. And I'm so proud to be a part of this organization.
I was just saying, well, I think, there we go. There you are.
There it is. They're at 50-yard line. It was fun. It was fun. It was a fun day.
Good for you. Well, again, you've earned it. As I was saying, you've made a difference. You know, you've made us better. You've made life better. So what's next?
Oh, wow. Well, we are obviously in Southern California. Now we're a bit in Northern California. We do lessons in San Jose and clinics. We do things in Texas. Next week, we got a golf clinic going on in Dallas. So we want to rebuild what we lost a little bit during COVID in terms of our Texas presence. And so it's just to keep growing, keep introducing more and more women and anybody who wants to join us to the game of golf, because we know it makes a difference in our lives, especially kids. We do a lot of things for young girls and mentor them. And so, I like to say for us, for economically challenged or underrepresented communities, golf is more than a lifestyle. Golf for us is a lifeline because it is our fairway to a higher education. So we want to get as many of our young girls into golf as possible.
Yeah, well, as I was saying, congratulations and thank you for everything that you do. You're infectious on a daily basis. And for the Latinas Golf Association, and it's been my honor to work with you and the California Alliance for Golf, and there's still much great work ahead. So appreciate your time this morning and keep doing it. I have a feeling we're not going to be able to stop you anyway.
Good, that's right. You won't. Loving it. Thank you.
Thanks, AZ.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, to wrap us, to take us home is Craig Kessler, Public Affairs Director for the Southern California Golf Association. Craig, we've got some immediate things, right? We have a session that's kind of winding down, but yet still technically in session. A meeting yesterday regarding golf and housing again, which I'm sure you'll discuss, some water issues. And then we had these water summit in Southern California, which was tremendous. And we're heading to one here in Northern California. So Craig, any one of those, please jump in. It's all yours. Thank you.
I'll cover some of them, but first I have to say that in Don Ray, the PGA of America has its force of nature, and in Azucena Maldonado, the Southern California Golf Association, in fact, the whole Southern California golf community has its force of nature. I always like to say I knew Azucena before she was famous. And I couldn't, it's a tough act to follow, but I'm following it today and I'll do my best I don't know if I can match the passion, but I'll try to match the intelligence and the wit, at least, if I can try that much. First off, as Len said, we have a long legislative session in California. And it really ends on September 30th, which is the last day for the governor to either sign bills or veto all those bills that go through. I'm not going to belabor Assembly Bill 672/1910. We've been over that many, many times. I think the golf community on a statewide level, every organization, golfers, thousands of golfers throughout the state rallied to defeat that bill. And I think all of us who work in the industry ought to be very, very grateful to the many, many individual golfers who we work for, who stepped up to the plate and helped our industry, and in the process helped themselves. It took that community to defeat that bill. We did everything we could do right, but without their support, that wouldn't have made any difference. So it never hurts to thank golfers in the state of California one more time for that. And also point out that the issues that animated it, particularly housing, don't go away. And that is a subject of why I was with Len and some others in the industry yesterday in San Jose, meeting with the state senator, but I'll get back to that a little bit later. It's nothing like 1910. It was a very cordial and productive meeting, nothing of that particular kind. Coming out of the session, the one thing that the governor did veto a bill that we were very pleased that he vetoed. It was AB 2146, which would have been sort of a legislative fiat or blunderbuss rejection of all non-agricultural uses of neonicotinoids. Let me call them neonics for short, otherwise I'll mangle that phrase as I'm talking. A golf industry uses them. There are workarounds, but I think what concerned us was that in the legislation, licensed applicators in the agricultural sector were exempted, but no other licensed applicators. And when you consider that golf uses only licensed applicators and only uses these things on turf, pollinators are not attracted to turf. The plea of the golf community really, and it was also a plea through the GCSA to the governor to veto it, was to use the Department of Pesticide Regulation. We have a DPR in California. It's in the process of doing rulemaking on agricultural and non-agricultural uses. Let that play out in a fashion with input, with science, with facts, with hearings and so forth. And the governor apparently agreed. And that is what is going to go on. And that gives the golf community the opportunity, when DPR visits the issue in 2023, to continue to make our case, not to take, we will support moving neonics onto the category of very restricted substances. That's not the issue, but to those industries or sectors that use only the highly licensed applicators to receive exemption from therefrom. Successful, I call it successful in the California way, which is agreeing with the premise of what is the clear will of the majority of the electorate in this state, but at the same time, getting down into the details in the best way possible, often to, I think, protect what we do on golf courses, which is, it's so easy to overlook. We may be enamored of our size and economic heft, but in this fifth largest economy in the world, we're pretty much a speck, and we have to come to terms to that. So we need to seek every opportunity to be heard at the same level as other major sectors like ag and oil and gas and all the rest. We have a pretty good track record considering our heft. And if 1910 is any indication, we punch well above our weight, but that's not a recipe for not adding to the weight of our advocacy efforts. You'll hear more about that in the future. If you read the news, whether you read the news on the internet or you get it on your phone, and particularly if you're old-fashioned like I am and you read a lot of newspapers, you know that yesterday, California's 4 major water agencies that buy water from that are part of the Colorado River Compact and Project did something that we have been predicting for a long, long time. They offered up the first round of permanent givebacks in California's allocation off the Colorado River Basin. I think between now and when we get to December, we'll end up being pressured to give up more. My hat is off to IID and CVWD and Metropolitan Water District for having the wisdom to do a bit of a preemptive strike by jumping out there and making clear that even though California has senior rights and could probably be very stubborn in this game, in the interests of preserving the integrity of the Colorado Basin, which is the other major source of our imports in Southern California, the primary one being the Sierra Snowpack, and that's suffering the same consequences of aridification that the Colorado, well, the Rocky Mountains are suffering, and that's why we're in a long-term drought in the Southwest because of a warmer and drier climate. So this is the impact this is going to have on golf is an impact that we've been predicting. We know what it's going to be because 6 million of Metropolitan Water District's 19 million customers have technically since June 1st, in the real sense, it took some time for that to factor in, have been on those severe cutbacks because they never had access to the Colorado River. They had access only to the State Water Project, which was in severe curtailment. So what's been going on in Los Angeles and substantially almost all of Ventura County and parts of San Gabriel Valley and Inland Empire, some parts yes, some parts no, depending upon local supply. We have an understanding of what's about to hit the rest of you that have been working with 15 or 20%, most of the time voluntary cutbacks. Sometimes local agencies have made them mandatory to meet the governor's overall demand. But now you're going to be looking at what we have some knowledge of what that's going to be, because we've been working with Los Angeles Water and Power and Callegas and others that were on June 1st put on the same kinds of restrictions. It's not pretty, but golf's pretty resilient. It is certainly doable. A problem that's happened in those areas, that's going to increasingly happen elsewhere, is those golf courses that have a non-potable supply, recycled water, get an incredible competitive advantage in an environment like this in those that are restricted to potable supply and are on severe restriction. I don't know. That's a fact of life, and that's a hard thing. There's no way to overcome it. It just is what it is. The only way to overcome it is to work with MWD and other agencies in the state of California to develop more recycle or non-potable supplies. That's not the kind of thing that happens overnight. It's very, very long term. But we're going to continue to press for it because we have some ideas about, as came out in the summit that Len alluded to in August, about doing our best to make sure that we can continue to deliver golf as a great recreational. We look at it as a business amenity, but what it is a great recreational amenity in this state of California, that we can at least keep our current size, and with any luck, maybe add to it as the years go by. It's going to be difficult, but I think if nothing else, the leaders of the game of golf, certainly in California, have begun to recognize that those tailwinds we used to have behind us in the golf community, are now pretty much stiff headwinds. But there's something about adversity that makes you smarter and more resilient. And I hope all of you sense as well, that we're becoming smarter and more resilient by the day. So we'll continue to scramble. As I always say when discussing these matters, I don't think that we have the ability to cope with whether it's level 3 they're out, which is we're in now, level 4. But when it gets to level 5 or level 6, and it could very well get to that if this next precipitation year does what all the experts are telling it's going to do. Of course, when the experts are weathermen, we know that they're wrong more than half the time, and we can just cross our fingers that they're wrong this time, because they're predicting another La Nina, which is pretty fluky to have 4 of them in a row, another La Nina year in which our precipitation is below average. How far below? We don't know, but we do know this. One of the results of my new favorite word, aridification, which just means we're warmer and drier than we used to be, is that one of the consequences is that even the amount of water that could be captured and stored from snowpack or from the melts in the spring from normal is less. The ground is drier, it soaks up more. The atmosphere is drier and warmer, and more of it evaporates before we can capture it. So even if we got back to a few years of average or even above average snow and rain, it wouldn't produce the same kinds of yields that we became used to for well over a century, which just presages, I think, a deep understanding. And I always, when having this conversation, I always point out that if you take a look at the first 60 years of California's history, you recognize first 60 years of the 20th century, you realize that we invested, even during the 1930s, during the Great Depression, we invested an enormous amount in building a water infrastructure that allowed the state to grow to a population of 40 million and allowed the golf community to grow to a population of roughly 1,000 regulation facilities. Well, the circumstances under which that structure was built by our ancestors, that time has passed it by. Capturing snow melt, there's just less of it. There are other techniques, 21st century techniques. We know that one of the consequences of aridification is that what rain we do have tends to come in atmospheric rivers, which means in quick deluges. We don't have the infrastructure to capture that. We're beginning, at least in Los Angeles County, has begun with Measure W a few years ago to start scoping out and funding the projects that I like to call 21st century ways of capturing and storing water, but we've only just begun. There's a huge time lag between pivoting towards the recognition that you need to do something, even getting the funding to doing it, and actually completing the projects. They're massive public works projects. So we're going to be investing considerably more because we have to, in order to be at least a population of 40 million and 1,000 golf courses. And we'd like to be a population bigger with even more golf courses. But just to maintain what we have, we're going to have massive investments. And this is my plea to every golf audience I can speak to. It isn't a question of whether those investments will be made. And when you use a word like this, investments, I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a weaselly political world, or a politician's word right now. It means fees and taxes. So my plea to golf is to recognize fighting these things is a fool's errand, because we would be fighting the very things we need in order to survive. The fight really is to get in the game, to become relevant politically and otherwise in communities, show up for meetings, engage. I think the reason that the Golf Summit was, the Golf and Water Summit was so successful in August was because it had, not just because it had an audience of roughly 230 persons, but because half of that audience was non-golf. It was locally elected leaders. It was conservation managers that I know, the people in the audience, if you were there, may not have known that, who we brought out so that we could talk to them and partner with them and make clear to them that we want to work with them so that they can secure the future for the whole state of California, so that we can have a secure future within it. And to also be participants in how these fees and these taxes and these necessary investments are structured. I always point to Measure W in Los Angeles County, which was passed with about 70% of the vote in the 2018 general election, and that was a parcel tax on property. It's, something's up when seven out of 10 persons vote to tax themselves. And in this case, it couldn't have been structured better for golf, because the only amount of because a parcel tax can be on the acreage of property, and that would put golf out of business. We have 150 to 200 acres, but it was only on the impermeable surfaces. In other words, the parking lot and the clubhouse. The golf course proper was exempt from the application of the parcel fee. And more than that, if you had discharge permits, and golf has local, state, and federal discharge permits more than it knows how to handle, you get a credit off that tax assessment for every one of those permits that you have. In short, it was incredibly equitable towards golf. And that's a result of not challenging the premise, recognizing the inevitability. And much like I explained in the principle of the veto of 2146, but getting on the ground and working to make sure that what's inevitable works for us and is fair to this particular sector. So that's a good example. And I hope that would be writ large. I hope we would take that to other jurisdictions and to the state level, and not fall into the trap of what I would call too many of the traditional business lobbies that see anything that says fee or tax, and as it comes, they just simply put up their arms and say, no, you're going to lose that battle. And then you're going to lose it even worse, because those who are at the table are going to carve out things for themselves, or they're going to make sure that their sector is treated equitably and fairly during the process. And I hope that's our goal within golf. I don't know what else Len set up, because I can't, because I've been talking nonstop and I can't remember the setup. But if there's something I didn't cover, I see we're hitting 11 o'clock. I'll allow him to have me cover it in a set of questions. But I'll say this: moving. This point in the year is an interesting point because it's the start of a new precipitation season. I think it's the beginning of giving up some of our allocation off the Colorado River permanently. It's the really end of a legislative session. So between now and the beginning of the year, we're going to try to regroup at all levels, at least the advocacy levels, and figure out what did we learn from the last year, both from our success, and you can learn things in, whether you, I mean, the old adage in politics is whether you've just had your greatest success, and 1910 may have been it, or your worst failure. Each has its own challenges within it and its own opportunities within it. So we have certain, I would call existential issues, and they almost go, all of them, to our encumbrance of the land we need to produce our service or to provide our service. And we've had, and at the same time, we've punched above our weight politically, but again, that has problems as well. In some cases, we caught the proponents of, let's say, AB 1910 by surprise. They won't be surprised in 2023 or beyond, because now they know where they made some mistakes, and they made some clear mistakes. And I'm not gonna, in case they're listening, I'm not gonna suggest what they were. And one of them, of course, was not anticipating one of the great strengths of the golf industry. We know we are a small, beleaguered, tiny minority. We're not well organized in terms of politics. We're horribly organized in terms of politics. But what we did discover is 3.5 million persons in this state play golf, and they live in all 80 assembly districts. And when they get sufficiently passionate about something and contact those assembly members, it has an impact. That's our greatest resource. We need good strategies and a good inside game, but never forget our greatest resource is, unlike some other activities, in other words, we tend to focus so much on the employment aspect. You're all PGA pros and GMs. I get it. I understand. Same thing applies when talking to an audience of superintendents or suppliers or anyone else in the industry, which tends to look at those who work immediately therein as sort of their political strength. But never forget that the real political strength in golf is the fact that there's no one who employs 305 million, although maybe the state of California does. I take that back. I better check that. But golf has 3.5 million advocates in this state because they play the game and they love the game. One of the delights yesterday in being with Len and some others in the golf community in Northern California and San Jose is, after meeting with the state senator, we stopped by at a little 9-hole facility in Cupertino. Not much. That's, had some challenges. I think we all came away from that meeting feeling really, really good. But in recognizing that for such a little place, that near as I can tell, had 2 employees on the site at a given time, that produces almost no economic activity, right in the middle of Silicon Valley, which produces octillions of dollars, if trillions of dollars of economic activity. Here we're a group of people who have, I think, made clear in that little community, this golf course is important to them. And that is ultimately, that is our power, that is our strength. And we should always focus on that. So keep that in mind, because GMs or golf professionals, most of you listening on this call, you're the ones who contact those passionate advocates for our game more than anyone else on a day-to-day basis. So keep in mind that as you're servicing their golf needs and sometimes servicing their personal needs, and like me, if you can shave one shot off my handicap, God bless you. But also keep in mind that leaving them with a good impression and bringing them, as Azucena Maldonado spoke so eloquently, bringing them into that family of persons who play golf and love the game. I don't remember the Spanish word, comadres, I think it was the one she used. Bring them into that. That will make them just that much more passionate advocates for the game. And ultimately, I'll close with this. If your livelihood depends on the game, then it's in your interest to develop those passionate advocates who want to do what is necessary in their communities to make sure that the little facilities, it's a tiny, sleepy, gorgeous, magnificent little developmental facilities called Blackberry Farms, and there are tons of them in the state, and they're the ones most in jeopardy. I'm not worried about Torrey Pines. Actually, I am for other reasons, but I won't go into those. But those are the kinds of places, and those are the ones that feed the game. As I understand, Nick Bailey, who's the incoming president of the Northern Cal PGA section and the GM at Lake Merced, which is, you put those things together, but he grew up in that community and only is where he is because of that little Blackberry Farms. And as long as those persons who don't forget where they came from, and that's where almost all of us came from, and golf will be okay, and we'll continue to develop those advocates at an important level. You can leave all the policy wonkiness to people like me and Kevin Fitzgerald and Sam and all the rest of them, Matt Rogers and all the rest of that sort of stuff. And just keep in mind that your job is to, well, if you can figure out our efforts, please do, and you can help them. We welcome the help. But at the end of the day, keep developing and making happy those passionate advocates for our game. They're known as golfers. Okay, again, Len, I'm going to turn it back over to you and see if I missed anything. You can ask me a hard question.
No, you got it, Craig. You got it. Thank you. And thank you for coming up yesterday and for the visits that we made. And I think they were more than encouraging. I would almost say a shift in psyche, if you will. We had an assemblywoman who came at golf to shut things down. And we talked to people yesterday, including a state senator. And it was about finding a solution and keeping everything open, but yet still working towards our goals. So thank you for that, Craig, and that change in environment is just tremendous for us. And you're right, that's where we got started. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, another great session today, and time to start wrapping up. Tom?
Yeah, thanks to everybody. It's I thought this morning was really, really good with AZ and John and of course Craig, and then thanks to Danny. Danny kept us going. I commend Danny, first timer. And then, of course, Steve was in the background helping him. But then, of course, Nikki and you, Len, you've done a great job, and we appreciate that. Follow up on Michael Block before we leave. Michael was the leader at the PGA Cup and the win at the PGA Cup, and flew most of the evening to get here for the section championship. Shot 76 the first round, then shot 68. He double eagled the second hole. And the interesting piece about that is that he double eagled the second hole on the last day that the former El Niguel, and I think Patrick can validate this, on the old number 2, and then he double eagles the new number 2. So that's pretty cool. And then shot 70 to win his third championship. And as was mentioned, his 9th Player of the Year title in Southern California, which is quite extraordinary. So congratulations to Michael. Our next chat, by the way, will be Friday, November 18th at this point. But keep your eyes and ears open, because that could change for any one reason. And we appreciate you being here this morning. And Len, thanks so much for your continuing efforts. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We were thrilled. Tom and I texting with Nikki as we have our podcast here to keep things going, that we're up to 60 folks attending today and last time too. So again, thank you all for this tremendous report. And Tom, a shout out, right? A shout out to Team California, Coach John Mason at Greyhawk at the moment, right?
Yeah, they're there representing again. Pretty cool.
Representing again. So good luck to them, and good luck to Team Utah as the defending champs. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for the continued support, the friendship, and looking after each other. Please enjoy Friday. Have a great weekend. Continue all the great stuff that everybody's doing, and we'll see you again on November 18th. Ciao.
Thanks.